do you create a fourth lane? Chick-fil-A is going to do a fourth lane. It's like, let's do it. I think that we did do that at Knickerbocker. And then it put us on the map.
My name is Gabe, your host. Today we're sitting down with Mr. Eric Samaniego. He is the Senior Director of Chick-fil-A here in San Angelo, Texas.
Awesome. Well, again, my name is Eric Samaniego. I've been with Chick-fil-A for 11 years now. I celebrated recently the 11th year. Usually I just say for a decade.
Okay.
So it's honestly the longest run that I've had with the company. And with Chick-fil-A, a lot of it has been just from the ground up. And so I kind of was recruited into the business a little bit, and then came in as entry-level leader, and then kind of worked my way up. The operator-owner, Rob Watkins, he's given me a lot of opportunity to just kind of try, invent, build, be a part of, and so worked my way up to this current title. Currently just kind of focused on partnerships, sales growth, and a little bit about the role itself is really just making sure that there's alignment at the executive level. Of course, a lot of throughput, a lot of people in the city.
So you said 11 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that as long as the two here have been in existence?
No, actually, the Chick-fil-A owner-operator who's current, there was another operator-owner that was here prior.
Okay.
And so I think the mall, which just recently closed, that was the original. Okay, that was a recent change.
So there were three.
Mm-hmm. There was three, and then went to four, and then went down to three. So
okay, you said you started off as a leader. Is that management level? You were overseeing folks on the line.
Yeah. So actually, my introduction to Chick-fil-A was really kind of. Was kind of unique. Me and my wife were really involved in the community. So this would have been in Lubbock, Texas. And we were involved with a nonprofit that really kind of focused on teen parents, that was focused on mothers and supporting mothers. And so as they started to have dads join, my wife was like, hey, you should come and just kind of help these guys try to be a dad. At the time, I'm still young.
Okay.
And so showing up, and I was kind of able to create some curriculum and just some guidance. An operator was there at a Q&A that we had, and he heard my story, and he's like, Eric, you work 3 jobs? Come to Chick-fil-A, and I'm gonna take care of this and join the company. And so that was my introduction to entry-level opening as a director, kind of overseeing a lot. At the time, I didn't know what I got myself into. One of the lessons learned was funny as far as training is concerned, which I'm sure I'll go into as we continue. I thought I was training for a kitchen role in the back of house. Love food. Food's been throughout all my life. And the next day, he gives me the keys. Like, all right, you're done with training. You're going to go to the front. And
how old were you then?
At that time, I was let's see, this is 15. I was 20. I was in my 20s.
Okay.
I would say this is in my 20s. At the time, I was really shocked at the opportunity. I was super appreciative to the operator, and he kind of gave me to his leaders, which are still working with Chick-fil-A currently, and just kind of got in there and learned a lot that I was with him. Life happens. Had my 4th kid. Of course, me and my wife have been married for 18 years. Still the good, the bad, the ugly, and the stuff you don't want to talk about. But that's a different podcast, a different story. And there was a church plant here in San Angelo, and so it was always for the city. I remember looking at some photos here recently, and I remember looking at something I had made on an iPad back in 2013, and it said "Pray for the City." And it was San Angelo, and I can probably share that with you, and you can kind of throw that up.
But we can pause for just a moment. Are you from San Angelo?
Mm-hmm. Born and raised.
But you lived in Lubbock for a period of time. Okay. How long did you live there?
So in Lubbock, so I'm going to say all together, because there was leave and go, coming back. So probably around 8 years, 8 plus years in Lubbock.
Okay.
Yep.
But you're now in San Angelo. This is home. You've got a wife. You've got children, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And you said earlier your boss in Lubbock said he heard your story. I want to dive into that if you can.
Absolutely.
Tell me your story. Who is Eric?
Yeah.
What makes you you?
Yeah. Honestly, who's Eric? I would say I'm an adopted son, so I really value faith. As far as the Creator and Jesus and who He's made me and how He saved me and who I am being molded to be and what He's asked me to do. So really driven by faith. Of course, I'm a father of 4, And that's really impacted me recently, because I think I had a little pivot away from where I didn't see and appreciate that for what that was becoming. And so here recently, really kind of being a father to my kids, and then being a husband to my wife. So I'd say family, faith, family, I take really serious. And then responsibility. So really leaning into responsibility, which I think I put work, service, community underneath that umbrella, if you will, or in that bucket, where we're called to be something and do something. And so for a while, I would say, not to throw another little sub note, but it's probably been 3 years worth of self-discovery that I kind of lost myself. And I know that we're taking a break of between the story, but I think coming from where I'm at now, it's kind of really a full circle, kind of like that feedback loop, where it's at the end, like, wow, where you started with Chick-fil-A is kind of where you're ending, but also beginning, a new chapter. So that's kind of where and who you're kind of getting to interview
and so
today.
For our audience's sake, you and I met only recently at a business networking event. I don't recall the topic of the event, but that's where we met. And it's unlikely that I would normally invite somebody who works in the restaurant industry onto a tech podcast, right? So AT Podcasts, if you don't know, it stands for Angelo Technical, and typically I bring on technical conversations. But I met you at this business conversation. You told me that you were maybe referred is the wrong word, but you had ran into Michael Looney. He mentioned me, and this is how we kind of clicked. We were sitting at that table together, listening to somebody speak, and I said, "Hey, Eric, would you be willing to sit down in front of a camera and talk and tell your story?" So you've told your story. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you very much. But now we're touching on a little bit about you and the community here in San Angelo. That's where we met. Tell me about what your role is, not just as a VP of Chick-fil-A, a couple of units here, but how does that translate to you and the community? Yeah,
I would say, kind of speaking some analogies, but I would say for a while, for that 10-year stint, really kind of been under the hood, in all areas of the business, from food. And you forget that after you stop to look at under the hood, what's around you, and there's people. And so I think the life lesson I really learned from Chick-fil-A, and I'm always learning something every day, is that people matter. And that's what Chick-fil-A is founded on. And so with that, the opportunity was kind of presented to me to really impact and to connect and to, of course, grow the business, but also grow the community was the challenge. And within each key area that a business has, really kind of I was able to kind of create and innovate and trailblaze different initiatives. Which I would say my role is really a jack of trades, even current, with the responsibility.
You say initiatives. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, if there's an opportunity for us to, receive a marketing incentive, or if there's this new rollout with, hey, the way that you've been operating technology-wise, we're scratching that and introducing a brand new thing. Just anything that's new or something that's coming either from the top down, or that the community's needing us to shift. So I would even say when COVID happened, that's a big pivot for everyone, and really was kind of was allowed to kind of lead in that, really out of Knickerbocker at the time. And as far as working my way up through the business, it really kind of was task oriented, managing those tasks, people oriented, managing and developing people, and then business oriented is probably the way I would frame it. Within the business, impacting, of course, profit, but also looking at product and people and processes and preventive maintenance, and process flow is really kind of one of my drives. Connecting to the community, though, I think we never really have that. I would say within the two restaurants, of course, out of Knickerbocker and Sherwood Way, and then help consult a little bit with the ASU location.
So there is still a third.
Yeah, I guess there tend to be fourth. Of course, there's the north side as well, which is Bryant. I think they refer to the Bryant Chick-fil-A. Yep. So graduated from the north side, graduated from Angelo State. That's a little stamp. But going back to answering your question about the community connection, really challenging to find out what's that balance between being a business leader and wanting to grow your business, and not doing that selfishly, but really changing that to where it helps the community. And I think that's kind of where I've been wrestling with that self-discovery, is that the Lord's gifted me with certain talents, and allowed me to steward little things all throughout my life, even from being a young kid. to even a Chick-fil-A business and working with a team and then transitioning myself or succeeding myself out of it where the people are really running it, then I'm able to go and focus on, okay, well, what is the city even doing? Mm-hmm. So I think asking that question of myself really kind of started, what's the city doing? What's going on in the city? Who are not the players in a sense that I need to network with, but who is doing what? Is there duplication? Is there a need that the city's saying? What's the disconnect? So I just start to ask all these questions. I'm a big questions guy within solving problems. But that led me to meet somebody named Trey Holmes in the community, and he connected us to this event that was happening. And I met Michael Looney at the Chamber of Commerce. That's where a lot of businesses are hanging out, and that's where we're able to kind of partner. And really, as far as our model, is just give away some free Chick-fil-A to those, that ultimately need it, because there's a lot of nonprofits, a lot of people that want donations. People are trying to sponsor and reach the people that they reach, and it's always kind of nice to be appreciative to the volunteers. And so that's kind of, the take that I took is like, there's help there that you don't pay them. They're there volunteering their time, and we want to be about that in our way. I mean, we don't cut checks left and right, but we know that we have food and we want to help and impact. So like the Concho Lights was really one of the big ones. Vitalent, the blood donation location here in town. So we give a lot of food away.
Do you see a lot of your daily operational responsibilities just doing exactly what you're now describing, interacting with the community, the community leaders, the Chamber of Commerce, and much less about day-to-day you're in the restaurant, you're functioning there? Is that what it is? It's more of a community?
I would say it's probably a 70 10 split as far as my role and what I give time and attention to. Okay. 70% is 100%, I think, still operations. I'm still there. I want to be in the know. I really kind of lead from the front. As far as like modeling what I expect and what Rob and corporate expect, being a protector of the brand, if you will, and making sure that those are happening, and anything else that's not either going up as far as being identifiable and taken care of, as far as bottlenecks and opportunities, and hey, let's try or tweak this. That's really low-hanging fruit. And some of that stuff is like, you can't see that from the top, So I would say 70% is operations, so kitchen and the front of house and meeting the customers. And I think where the people are, they're our customers. And so that's kind of where I've vested my time is. So I'd say 70% is really kind of front-facing. You'll see me in the drive-through windows. Or really kind of housed out of Sherwood. And then 20% I think is probably given to community connections, and identifying those and kind of taking those back to maybe our EC board, and then we kind of discuss like what opportunities or what do we want to do here, and still trailblazing that, because I'm really probably somebody that's like, okay, well let me lead out, let me build this, or look at this opportunity here, and what are the processes, and then let's plan on what that needs to be so it can be passed on to someone else and duplicated, because it's not about just me, it's about others. That's important. And so
you said that earlier a couple of minutes ago about succeeding yourself. So you're bringing other people up, kind of training them to kind of take over what you might already be doing. Is that what I'm hearing?
There was I was able to do quite a few different grand openings at other locations throughout Texas, and there was a leader from an actual VP from corporate, and he had mentioned something off passing, and it meant a lot to me. And he said the only thing that operators do and the best leaders do, and you need to make sure you do this, is duplicate yourself. And so in a way, it took it as a challenge, because I was like, well, I do that, but it was really on the task level.
Was that hard for you at first?
Well, I didn't. It was more, I think, when you get advice from a bigger brother, you can easily check that box, because you're like, I did that, or I have done that, or I'm just trying to get to my goal, and so I overlooked it. Then I revisited in reflecting, kind of this, a lot of reflecting within this 3-year self-discovery piece, and looking back, I was like, wow, like I wasn't doing that very well, but actually how I'm wired and my why and what I do best is really kind of to duplicate myself for the betterment of that person who does want to go up, because then you become the ceiling and nobody else can go up there because you're at the top. And then second, because other people need that. And so that's kind of that meets the community piece, and kind of where I'm at is Born and raised born and raised San Angelo, okay. Grown, and we'll say coded with Chick-fil-A.
Okay,
that's kind of funny. And then I would say now ready to kind of springboard into the community. You know, okay. San Angelo with the kids, I'm kind of vested, and so I'm just seeing what's here and what's there. Kind of wanting to play around with innovation as well as entrepreneurship and mm-hmm. coaching and helping others in a forum that, you know, everybody may or may not be looking for opportunity. And for me, thinking outside the box or looking at a different table comes easy. Okay. It's one of the gifts that I have. And so yeah.
You know, Chick-fil-A has a lot of young employees. Mm-hmm. I would assume high school kids. Mm-hmm. Do y'all have leadership type programs or development, mm-hmm. even for them, knowing they may be leaving soon, heading off to college?
Yeah, this is one of the joyful and painful pieces about mm-hmm. where we're at within the ecosystem of economics. Really in this market, as far as with the food industry, is that you kind of build them up and then they leave. Mm-hmm. So it kind of happens every graduation. You know, you see some people and they fly away, and some people want to stay. And we had to create a pipeline, you know, development, an LDP is what we called it, but a leadership development plan. And we kind of inherited one and tweaked it together. The EC team that we have, we've been through a lot, and we were able to kind of develop this pipeline. And I kind of gave you, at least in a framework, what that looks like and the different skills and competencies that we've added along the way. And so you definitely need a pipeline to help them.
What does EC stand for?
Executive. Well, when I say EC, I'm speaking specifically about an executive team. So it's a team, which is really an additional lesson I probably learned, is that you can't do it alone. And so I think I hit my ceiling in trying to do it alone, and I kind of had to learn that the hard way, which I think life lessons from a aspiring, ambitious leader is a different podcast. But one thing I did learn is that it takes a team to build out a vision, if you have a vision, or to execute what you're being asked to execute from somebody else's vision. You need a team. And so sometimes I'm just I've always been a lone ranger, you know, no pun intended, with the Rangers of Texas, but I kind of was raised a lone ranger and just get it done and build a golf course in the backyard and build a boxing ring and a ramp and just try and do different things, you know, and always loved Legos. And so with that being said, I think I kind of hit my peak of like, you can only do so much, and really you need others, and they're not to be used. And so I think one of those values of like, you know, I probably lean a little more into grace as far as when it comes to accountability, but it's more so because I want them to learn something, you know, and do they even see this? And if it's not, then it strikes you out, like, you know, you need to go to a different organization. So I would say with a lot of teens coming in and going out, you know, really Chick-fil-A, I heard this analogy, is really kind of like a tree where squirrels eat from it, people get shade from it, birds come in and fly for, you know, protection from it. And we're just kind of this like rooted deep, and not just this community, but a lot of communities that we're just rooted deep, that we can withstand certain external, you know, as long as it's not happening internally, certain external things within any, you know, and I'm not speaking for Chick-fil-A, but just from what I've observed is that our organizations are deeply rooted.
Now you say deeply rooted, and you've already mentioned you're born and raised San Angelo. You've left. You've come back, you've left, come back. Tell me about your perception of San Angelo from your early days when you were a young teenager yourself to what the economic landscape looks like today.
Yeah, great question.
So, I mean, I've only been here since 2017, and I've seen it change. To my perception, it looks like it's changed quite a bit in the 10 years that I've been here, but you've been here your entire life.
Yeah. So I think my perspective growing up, I don't know that I necessarily would have seen San Angelo for what all of San Angelo had when I was younger. I think it was very much just build and try, and you're kind of on your own and just doing things and learning the hard way. One of the things that I say I love but also hate, and this is a life lesson, like you kind of have to learn the lesson through life, is that you're learning by leading. And that's that trailblazing that I speak to, is like the best teacher is just life. And so when I was young, I think a lot of things, as I'm reflecting back, like they were just kind of over my head. I think what I got introduced as far as San Angelo is opportunity, which is good, but not necessarily framed well. You know, I don't think the end result and
elaborate.
Yeah. I don't think the end result was painted well for me.
Okay.
You know, I got framed with opportunity, but I didn't see the picture. So I was able to play and do, but I think probably upbringing, and this might be more of core internal discussion as far as like who I was. Faith had an influence. You know, there's these different influences. Teachers had influences, but I don't know that I was necessarily solely seeing a picture of what that. You have this opportunity, this freedom and liberty, but what you're doing with it is for selfish reasons. Okay. And I think that's how I would probably paint. Is that, man, San Angelo through my selfish lens as a young little kid,
so, you know, like
I didn't see what was happening.
Okay, so like many young people coming to of age, 17, 18 years old, they're ready to leave.
Honestly.
You know, fly the nest, leave their hometown. Was that you? Did you
really for sure. Get out of San Angelo. I think I wanted to go Big Blue. You know, I wanted to go to Michigan and have dreams of aspiring to just different things, architecture and blueprint and building. I think it was building, which is true now. Building, reforming, deconstructing and reconstructing and trying new things. And so it was always to leave. But for some reason, San Angelo always called me back, you know, and I think even pressed right now is like, do you fly away? Do you go somewhere? There's always opportunity, but I think all of that's selfishly motivated. I think my stay is probably more community oriented and community focused now. Is like, I have my kids, I have my family, I want to provide for them. There's people that have problems, you know, it's just you don't hear people aren't talking about their problems because that's vulnerability. It's a different topic. But I think, you know, me sitting here is saying, hey, you know, whatever those problems might look like as far as input outputs and the framework that you're putting your inputs in so that you can get your outputs, like, you know, I'm willing to have a conversation. San Angelo at that time, being young, I think it was just like a springboard. You know, that's probably how I would kind of tailor it, is that I'm learning some things, I have opportunity, and then I'm out of here. I don't know, I heard a message being young, and this might be something for the city now. I don't know that I heard the opportunity framed as like home, invested, apart, matters. You know, I don't know that. And you're just young.
You said,
you know,
you used the word selfish a couple of times, but isn't that okay for a young person, 17, 18 years old, 19 even, to be selfish, to want for yourself? You want to go, you take on the world, and you want to see things, and you want to be part of this bigger thing that maybe you weren't part of, or you didn't think you were part of because you lived in a smaller town.
Yeah, I think I use the word selfish just as a polar opposite of selfless and sacrifice and giving. I think one of the things now, looking through a filter of the giver, is that I was given this opportunity, but instead of viewing it rightly, like giving it to others, it's only for me to hoard and keep. But yeah, if I was to say anything as a young person, I would probably point them in a direction of like, framed opportunity, that, you know, there's things and conversations, skills, competencies that marry and meet. And we try to do that in Chick-fil-A, where we're, you know, we get a little upset when we get poached. You know, it's hard to get a feather plucked, you know, when somebody comes to the Chick-fil-A is like, hey, you can come over here. But we understand that Chick-fil-A is really high within the, you know, customer service and hospitality range, and better for them because everybody has opportunity. It's not I look at it as selfish mode. It's like, you might have other opportunities. It's going to be a lot of like learning by leading, and you might have some bumps down the road if you go and just jump out and you leave our LDP, but, you know, we're not trying to make you our person, you know, and stay here. And you love people in the medical field, go. You love people in technology, go. You just want more opportunity because you want to fast track that, go. You know, like each person has their own story to write, and so we're just a part of that story for people. San Angelo now is, I think, change. You know, I think that's kind of what I see. I think the opportunity.
In what way?
In positive. You know, there's a lot of things that are coming that haven't come in a while, and so change is always a little. Change can be perceived and is all over the place whenever it comes to like something that you love. So I think a lot of misunderstanding could be happening because something new or something different is being brought to the table, and maybe the communication in the way that we're communicating about what's new on the table, i.e. we'll just use my bandana there, is that it's not that's not gang oriented. That actually is a Chick-fil-A bandana, and I sweat a lot.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for alleviating that. But I think the tension for something like that, like if that was red or blue, you know, and I guess I bleed blue, but it's Lakeview. As in regards to that, I think it's more so just having a conversation and being cognitively aware of that. Like, there's two sides of a coin. And I always carry around a coin for this reason, is because somebody on the other end, no matter how I'm being engaged with, it could be in conflict, it could be from like want, it could be for need or whatever. They have a different perspective, and so I want to hear that. But I think it's hard when people don't want to talk, and you can get that really quick, and so you're either going to waste your pearls or just keep them. And so with the community and change, I see that, like, you know, growing bigger. You hear the word bigger. You hear, and it's different words. Here's the thing, you know, there's a question I had seen about, you know, what would be the message that Angelo, you know, or what advice would you give to Angelo or to leaders or to somebody that, you know, is a mover, is really kind of the unison on like maybe one word, one motto, one thing. And it's hard to get everybody involved on one thing, because each person has a different seat at the table, or in regards to different interests and wants and things. But I think if San Angelo is to grow, and growing is the one word, it's kind of like it's just being preached. I don't know by who.
Yeah. Do you think there are some in San Angelo who do not
want growth? Probably don't want growth.
Okay. I see that.
Yeah.
I see it and I hear it in the short period of time that I've lived here. I think it's quite substantial, the amount of people who want it to just be San Angelo.
Yeah.
And I hear things like, we're not going to be the next Austin. We don't want to be the next Austin. And I don't know why anybody compares us to them or tries to fight the idea that we're somehow compared to Austin or bigger cities. But I do see a need for growth. I think you do as well. Maybe responsible growth in certain directions. If you can guide it in a certain way without causing friction or disruption for people's way of life, then it may be okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, you know, I appreciate the comparison to Austin, but I want to be better than Austin. You know, and I think some of that is, you know, and a lot of my references really are talking about food industry, and they're just like snapshots, you know, really to a micro perspective. But when it comes to like an Austin or any type of comment like that, I think it's interesting to me. You know,
I like the way you said that. I want to be better than Austin.
You know what I mean? Like things like that, where it's like, what tagline does San Angelo need? And it's not to nullify that person's side of the coin or their conversation or what they're saying, but I think it's telling of like a vision. You know, it's telling of unity. So the micro shot from Chick-fil-A. Language is everything to us. You know, we say herd, not because of a herd of cows, but herd in regards to like, I hear you.
Okay.
Like, I got you. And so if you ever go into the Chick-fil-A's and you see the interactions, because I always see eyes, you know, looking, and because you're waiting for us to go faster maybe, or you're waiting for the person that has a super special order. But if you ever hear an interaction, and you hear the word herd, it's more of a loaded word. And so I think language for me has always been, as far as a leader, language for me always mattered. I might not be the best at English or in language, but for me it matters because it speaks movement. It has to speak movement, because that's why we're talking, that's why we're connecting, that's what we're wanting to do. And so that's the reason why I highlight that of like, man, I want to be better than Austin. You know, what does that look like? I think that's for somebody to paint, which I think tags to when I was younger, is like, what does that look like? What are the possibilities? Micro shot to Chick-fil-A. Introducing change is like, why do we have to do that? Sometimes we can take that personal. Well, that person doesn't like me. That person doesn't like change. And then that stigma's on them. Well, let's just get them out, or let's seclude them, or let's not include them, or let's silence them. Or let's partner with them, right? If we like what they're saying, or if we like the change.
I think that sometimes the resistance to change is about who's leading the change.
It's a piece of it. I think it's a piece of that pie.
If me as Gabe, if I'm trying to usher in this huge change for San Angelo, and most people don't like me, but they're not necessarily opposed to the idea, I think it might lend itself to more resistance. And for me to say that is, maybe you have to position the right leaders, the ones who can push things through with conformity with backing and things of that nature. Is that, do you think that's...
I don't disagree with what you're saying. Okay. I do hear what you're saying. Again, different table perspective. I think it really does come down to what the leader is representing, what vision, what culture, what they're saying, what words have already kind of been out there for them to attach to. Because you nullify any of that. Well, it's because they're wearing this. It's because they look like this. It's because they're from this perspective or from this city and this town. But I do think it is a little bit about what you're saying, and I'm speaking probably more to like a solutional outcome or perspective, that might be something that's addressed or along the way within, here's what we want this grand picture to look like. Let's just have like a bullet point where that's covered, and how it's covered and taken care of, because your concern is huge to you right now because you bring it up and it matters. But I think in the grander piece, there's probably 4 or 5 other just as equal big perspective sentences and concerns, problem, barrier, obstacle, or bottleneck, if you will, is the language I would use from the food industry. That matters, but I think something else has to matter bigger than just that concern. But we're going to address that, and so I think one of my, I guess, solutions to that would probably maybe necessarily be is like it has to be from that vision.
Okay.
And that vision has to be communicated through a person or from the starting point of an individual. So yeah, you can't have one without the other. But at the same time, I think that's where like that collective piece of like, well, if it's we the Sanangelonians saying it in unison, then there might be resistance to that change. But it's a part of it. I think being okay with change.
In San Angelo,
some of it's abrupt.
With resistance to change, do you think it's about becoming larger, more populous, or is it also or completely about technology and fear of technology and changes ushered in through that?
It's probably both. I think it's both and probably more. There's probably other, comments that would be, I can see entered into that. Those might be the loudest ones current. Yeah.
So I mean, if you picked up on that transition I just gave into technology, you work for a restaurant chain, Chick-fil-A. How does technology play into what you do, whether it's from operations to leadership development to being a part of the community?
Yeah, it really kind of hits all three. I would say it's, all three. Well, yeah, because I would probably say the business, the community, and then self. I probably within the business, you're wanting to develop yourself, you're wanting to develop your team, you're wanting to develop your operation, and then the community. I think all of those you need technology. And I think as a preference or like a overarching motto statement, technology, as far as my perspective, it really is to use technology and not let it use you. And so I think that fear conversation at the table probably is stemmed from that is propaganda and influence and all that thing, all those different kind of concerns, parents and not parents, and limiting time and all those things is really because what I'm assuming automatically and agreeing to is that technology is bad. Or can be bad, and for me, I'm saying that, but in a nullifying way of like, well, because we need to use it. So like, if I'm wanting to learn something, how to from a marriage conversation, how to repair a dryer, that's helpful. So I think having technology within its right lane, as far as like assessment, because your expectation, skill level, resource. And then a whole lot of coaching or accountability. This is kind of a framework that I've really worked off of. Technology is not all of it. Technology has its lane. So I think if it's in its right lane, then it's...
let's say, for example, data analytics tied in with marketing, where you being Chick-fil-A, not you being Eric, want to push Chick-fil-A through all levels of marketing, even social media. So if I drive by a Chick-fil-A, will I get some type of pop-up on my Facebook feed? Things of that.
Yeah. I would say, technology has expedited growth, not just for Chick-fil-A, but I think for a lot of businesses. And it can happen really quick. And I think what's happening now with technology and business, and really I think, and I don't want to speak for Chick-fil-A, so technology, we love it. We got a mobile lane at one of our restaurants. One of the other restaurants can't really have that, and so you basically just order your food, come through, pick it up, and then hi bye. Some people don't want to talk to people, but those ones usually have some type of reason that speed is super high on their level. So I'd say technology, super welcoming within the food industry. A lot of apps, a lot of rewards, and so
was that a welcome change when at the advent of DoorDash and Favor and pick up to go? I don't have to order my food. Mm-hmm. I don't have to drive to the restaurant. I can have somebody else pick it up. Was that a significant change for Chick-fil-A?
I would say yes, which is why broadly I say for most businesses, because as you introduce not only the frustration of change for technology wiping away paper or the old way, if you will, it also has the potential to expedite growth. And I think if business outgrows you, then you're either going to have to pivot, adjust, adapt, and tweak. And some people don't know how to do that quick. Sometimes it takes too long, and then that business, if you will, goes elsewhere. So I think for us, we had to pivot very fast, and it put pressures on different areas in the business, and so we had to kind of pick and choose and get alignment, turn off some things, turn on some things, reintroduce some things. And so I guess the best way I would say technology in the food industry, at least for us, is that it has the potential to really kind of outscale you, and it actually is going to help you and force you to scale. And I think people either do realize that, because they're like, man, I don't want to change anything because it's just easy. Let's just get that same number I'm guaranteed to get. No big deal. And others are saying like, hey, there's more. There's opportunity to introduce this thing and get more. I think the underlying fear is like, man, I just don't know if we can change that fast. I don't know about change. We're gonna have to do this and this and this. There's multiple different moving pieces, because what happens when you say growth of San Angelo is you're like, well, what about the crime? You start to hear everything holistically. What about the crime rate? It's like, well, where did that come from? It's like, well, because you get more people. So I think you start to just have these not distraction and not non-good concerns. You start to have these things be introduced to the table, which is why I refer to a new table, is that, and refer to like different other solutions that are there, pulling back to technology in the food industry. I think because it expedites capacity, that's a good thing, Yes. But people don't know how to scale. And that might be the limiting factor depending on the industry. And so for food industry, it's like, well, how do you scale? Do you create a fourth lane? Chick-fil-A is going to do a fourth lane. And so why and how and then it's like, well, we need to pivot to other concerns. So I think any type of business, any industry.
Was there demand strong enough already for that fourth lane to come about, or did you build the fourth lane later and it just worked out?
No, the demand so the traffic or the demand actually, we had to adjust and pivot, which is where I speak from, somewhat of experience of like, man, you're either gonna, because you're not on the sideway, you're not along or next to a highway, like in Dallas where some of these Chick-fil-A's are, and you go to other places like, man, they're just so slow and they just can't handle the demand. And I think each business is having to choose, rightly so, what it is that they want to focus on and what it is that they want to aspire to. And so if your output that you care about, meaning the vision, is, say, only and specifically just hamburger, entrees, then it's just hamburger entrees, and everything else matters, but it's just that one piece that you want. So I think each person has the right to kind of choose what outcome they really care about,
Okay. What about you personally and technology and artificial intelligence? How do you see that?
Yeah, technology, I love it. Again, I try to help it to help me. I try to.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, looking up YouTube videos. I think if there's something that I'm struggling with, or something that I need to be updated on, or something that I'm not usually, privy to or don't know about, i.e. AI. I'm wanting to investigate, I'm wanting to learn. And so I'm using it more as like a school, if you will, to learn. And that's probably the best case scenario where, okay, well, let me learn about this and let me try, let me play with it. And then, not let it tell me what it is that I need to necessarily be afraid of or do. But if a teacher is teaching you how to use technology, you're like, okay, well, let me play with that. So
yeah.
I think best case scenario is really just within self development, using that, through books and technology.
Has there been a moment in your use of technology, or not technology, but AI specifically, when the light bulb just turned on? You're like, wow, that's kind of really
as far
amazing.
as like a self-discovery piece. Yeah. I think there was something that someone had said through a TikTok, and I never thought about it before, and I was like, wow, I think I might. So I took this idea or this concept and kind of self-reflected on it for a little bit. That it actually, I was like, oh wow, that is kind of how I'm wired. I'm not letting it tell me who I am, but I'm letting it there's like an analogy that was given, and it was through technology, and I think through books. Like I think I'm more of an audio learner rather than just sitting there and read books. And I'm kind of like going back to paper.
I'm the same way.
But like if there's like, man, there's this really good book by Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and I'm like, man, this is one of my assignments. Rather than checking a box to because that's an assignment from somebody else, I think for me doing that because I want to learn something. And I think in there it was talking about shame and guilt, and I was like, wow. Never even thought about that. Never even thought about vulnerability and leadership and, having to deal with your failures. And then what do you do? How do you communicate that with people? And all that was from running and listening to Brene Brown, using technology. Yeah. And then, using that, I would say also too, within self-development is just other ways of communicating. I think, Grammarly, before AI was AI or ChatGPT and all these search bars, Grammarly was there, and it's like, hey, sharpen, make your etiquette more professional, and so I think using them in best where you're at, identifying as like, man, this guy needs opportunity in conveying what he's trying to say because he's not saying it clearly. You can say it audibly clear, but like text message, what are you saying? Or you're. I
find myself doing the same.
Yeah,
I fire off a lot of text messages and emails throughout every day, even on the weekends, and sometimes I go back and look, I'm like, I don't think I made sense there.
So when it comes to AI, I think, well, let me pull back. Oh, trends, identifying trends. When you're looking for trends, it really is solely on that person that's looking at that data, because it's just data. It might expedite how long you have to sift through letters and numbers. It's going to close that gap. Man, AI is faster.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What you do with the data, and not mean in like a weird bad way or good way, how you interpret. I think that's the human thing that really is still there, is that depending on how you filter and what filters are there, features or whatnot, whatever it is that's being created with AI, that data is still there. There's still human. There's still somebody there to say, hey, based off of this data that I see, more questions. I need another filter, or let's make this decision. Let's try this. And so that's where I kind of am with AI. I like that. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with it is, when I'm looking at my data that I'm able to have access to with the role that I'm in, I specifically am able to, with my cognitiveness, look at that data and make judgments or dictate and outline my focus, but also what it is that I'm communicating the focus potentially could, or the opportunity needs to be for the high-level leaders, mid-level leaders, lower-level leaders, or the team members. And so I think just on a day-to-day, basis, when AI is introduced at that level where it's at, rather than me clicking a button, I'm having to dig a little bit. It's kind of, that human in the loop. That's where I guess it's like technology 2.0. It's like 3.0 is like AI. Right. Is that I don't necessarily, and I don't know that I've ever operated other than showing others how and what I look at, what I look at for sensors or for like, hey, red alert, in regards to like a threat or bottleneck that would be occurring in my throughput process. Because you're talking about, we move a lot of cars. Yeah. There's different things and different sharing that are human in the loop.
If you can say, does Chick-fil-A use AI in its analysis of traffic, of food being pushed through and numbers?
On a day-to-day basis, we're in the people business. We're in the chicken and the people business, and really it's the team that runs and executes. And we have technology that we interact with. Is kind of where we're at.
Okay, but you don't have an AI telling you that lane 4 is moving too slow, do this to make it. Okay. Would y'all, if it was introduced from corporate Chick-fil-A, I guess you would have to if it was prescribed.
A lot of that is, if any changes in whatever, if something was asked, we would comply, because we're a partner. So.
Okay, and on a personal level, what is your favorite chat? GPT, Claude, Gemini?
As of recent, it was chat, OpenAI, and so I had that. And so now it's kind of like, okay, what I've used AI for, I think I hit the ceiling. Like what I was using it because I need to be able to learn either something about myself or something about whatever's there. For the most part, I've kind of peaked that, and really now it's in the realm of like using it as an agent or putting the connectors on, and using it in the agent form where it's like benefiting me in my wellness of life. And do I actually need it on a day-to-day basis? I think that codependency on AI or technology is the temptation. So I think I've paused.
How are you using it in an agentic form?
I think a lot of it is, so in my role, there's a lot of dates, a lot of times, a lot of organizing different things, and I think, what is it, Magnus?
I don't know that one.
I think but it's kind of like an agent form where it takes just some of that data and says, hey, do you want to put this on your calendar or not?
Yes.
You see those. I see some of that through just some of the my standard phone AI, so like Samsung's AI or Google's AI. I think right now at the time it seems like it's moving so fast, and the things that I'm wanting to kind of try or invent, like they're already kind of on and doing that first mover, if you will. And it may be AI that's like, hey, well, you could do this, yes or no, and then whoever has the access to the yes or no buttons, like, yes, let's do that, and that's kicked out as a feature. So I feel like right now where my heart is as far as the play and the want, it kind of was like kind of snuffed, because it's like it's always changing, and AI doesn't know what it's doing unless the human in the loop that's present is very observant to that on what it's going to allow.
A good example of the way I use it in an agentic form is exactly what I printed off for you here. So for every new guest that is I either invite or somebody suggest, I hop onto what's called OpenClaw. That's my agent. It's installed on my laptop, and it reaches out to OpenAI for its inference, for its brain. And I say, I met Eric Samaniego a couple of weeks ago at a business networking event in San Angelo. Here's his LinkedIn. And if you had to give me any other online information, my agent would have gone to those websites and dug and found out information about you. And I had over here, I have several sheets about, there's a README, there's about Eric. And it tells me, and it lays out this show. It tells me how to introduce the next step, and that's all I have to do.
I would say as far as like efficiency, like that's huge for AI.